All right, so hi, I'm Mike Turkowski. I'm going to talk to you about the things I learned, with the Information Security Office implementing the SIM here at RIT. In general, experiences throughout higher ed. Um, the reason why I wanted to give this presentation is kind of just to help you kind of, prepare for what you might encounter, when you get out there, in the real world and maybe have to face a challenge of implementing a solution of this nature. And so, hopefully this kind of helps and prepares you for that. There's this quick little blurb about me. I've been working here for just a little over 2 years now. Prior to working here, I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Started out in IT, worked my way up to information security, and then made the switch over here so that I could do a lot more like hands-on type security, whereas in the government it was mainly just GRC work. So if you don't know what a SIM is, Security Information and Event Management Solution, it's helps to detect and respond to, security threats in real time. So essentially what it does is it collects data from various sources across your enterprise. So your Active Directory, DHCP, DNS, LDAP. It pulls data from your computer systems and your servers through the use of an agent, and then relays that back to the console. A lot of this stuff is, since it's monitored in real time and it needs a lot of you need to be able to act on it accordingly. You may need to invest in a SOC. So if you work in a large enterprise company, you might have a SOC. Or you might have to do what we did and go with Rapid7's 24/7 SOC. And basically what it does is the data comes in from all of the various sources and then it runs against these detection rules. And if there's a match, it creates an incident based off of the severity level. So RIT, we implemented a SIM solution here. We just finished up the project last month. And basically this is the timeline. So, we wanted to get a SIM. We started it in 2021, and we finally got the project kicked off in October of 2022. You've got to do a lot of, upfront research of what you're looking for, costs, benefit analysis, all that good stuff. And then you send out basically a request for proposal to different vendors saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we want, what can you do for us? And they send that back. We did several proofs of concept with, vendors such as Splunk. We did the Microsoft Sentinel, obviously Rapid7. We sent an RFP out to IBM, but they never got back to us. So we weren't able to assess QRadar. So far, our SIM, we've got just over 10,000 agents that have been deployed. You can see the stats there. Majority, obviously, Windows. Our lower numbers on the Linux side. I'd say probably 100% of those are Linux servers. We've got 15 core event sources. On a monthly average, we're taking in about 6 billion logs. We have deception technology set up, so things such as honeypots, honey users, honey credentials, and then there's also file integrity monitoring and file access activity monitoring. FIM monitors for any types of modifications to sys files, INI, EXE. FAM monitors any type of create, read, update, or delete to Windows file shares. On average, we're getting about 300 alerts generated a month. And since go live, which was last October, we've had 12 high-level incidents that we were able to identify and stop. Had we not had the SIM, I'm fairly confident that these would have turned into more complicated exploits. So implementing SIM in higher ed, this is pretty much what my project experience was like. You know, it's different wherever you go. You know, if you work for the federal government, they're going to tell you, you know, this is what we're rolling with. This is when we're implementing it. Go, and nobody can say anything. Nobody can, you know, argue with you on that point. If you work for a large enterprise or a company, it's probably going to be the same thing. You know, we bought it, implement it, make it happen. Here in higher ed, it's a lot more complicated. So first and foremost, when you're selecting your team for implementation, and when you get the project going, make sure that you have the right people from the very beginning. So what we had happen is during the RFP and the proof of concept, we were provided whomever the managers from the different types of teams had for that given time. They didn't give us the individuals who were asking all of the questions, who had the years of experience. They kind of just gave us the people to get through that and then go forward. So you definitely want to ensure that, even though there might be individuals out there that are going to make it more complicated, involve them in the discussion. Also involve the vendor in all of the meetings. Until that SIM is 100% deployed and they have signed off saying that everything is good and go forth and use the product, let us know if you have any issues. Use them for all of your meetings, all of your questions. Involve them at all points because you're paying them for it and they should be there. Otherwise, these individuals that you're going to bring in that are going to ask all the questions and raise all the problems are going to want all these answers, and there's going to be lots of back and forth. Involve those individuals as well early on through the proof of concept, through the RFP, deciding on what vendors you want to go with, because they will help you to kind of do more of the deep diving into the different products and how the solution might run for you. We also ran into a lot of issues with, I guess you could call it the Great Resignation. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but a lot of people did leave over the course of the last 24 months. So we had a lot of gaps in experience. This could be an issue. So you kind of want to, I guess, have people that or that you can reach out to that can kind of give you a favor and maybe helping train some of your engineers or your staff into how to do things. Specifically for our SCCM deployments, deploying everything to our Windows devices and our servers, we had to rely on a contractor because we didn't have a full-time employee. For deploying to our Mac OS systems, we had to reach out to NTID to say, hey, we have no idea how to package this up for Mac. Can you please help us? And then as far as Linux goes with Ansible and Puppet, that was a whole nother training exercise for teaching multiple people how to do this. One problem that you're probably going to run into is if you go with a vendor that has closed source software, which Rapid7 obviously does, their agent, you're going to have a lot of issues with engineers who are going to deploy this to their servers. They're not going to want to do it because they're not going to be able to see the code and see exactly what it does. That is something that you're going to need to have the vendor there to help you with, to answer all of those questions. Unfortunately, actually being able to see that code and get a lot of the in-depth answers that you want, you're probably not going to get because the company is going to, basically tell you that it's proprietary information and software. So it's really something that you're going to have to work through and make do with. Utilize peer institutions or other companies that have used this solution to answer any type of important questions that might be brought to you. And then I'll just run over asset inventory, of course, in the next slide. Inventory is everything. When you deploy a SIM, they're going to want basically at least 80% of the agents to be deployed in order for the deployment to be considered successful and the SOC to be able to step in and start, assessing your environment and really diving into those logs. Working in a higher ed institution, such as RIT, for example, we have multiple colleges, we have different IT staffs spread all over the place, and we don't have a solidified inventory program. That caused a lot of issues in determining who has what systems and what doesn't have the agents yet. Agents were deployed, we were seeing things that we didn't have on spreadsheets, and we were adding things, and it was a mess. Ensuring that your IT counterparts have an updated and accurate asset inventory is a must-have before a project like this goes off. References, your vendor should be able to provide client references. They provide you with documentation or paperwork or whatever that says, okay, yeah, we're being used at Virginia Tech or Harvard or Yale or whatever. That's not enough. So give us references that we can reach out to and that we can ask the questions. For us, we reached out to a couple other peer institutions, one of them being New Jersey Institute of Technology, and we were able to get a lot of the questions answered that a lot of the engineers who didn't want to deploy this solution to answered in a timely manner. And you could even ask them if they would consider hopping on a call with those teams to kind of answer those questions. Advocating for the product is going to be something that you have to do, obviously, when you want to purchase it. Mostly your senior leaders. I know for us, our CISO had to go in front of RIT's board of directors, the president, the VP of finance, and advocate for this program. Why did we need a SIEM? Why do we need a 24/7 SOC? Why are we going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? And so one of the things that you might be asked to provide, obviously, is those key metrics. Things such as what's our vulnerabilities to date. Are we struggling with remediating things? Do we not have enough staff? Stuff like that. Campus IT, in order to kind of go in agreement with you and saying, yeah, let's implement this thing, they're going to want more of the technical details. They're going to want, risk assessments, more stats, cost-benefit analysis. What's in it for us? Why should we help you do this? Because they're not, technically nobody can say you need to do this. They will fight it as best they can until they're assured that this is right for their college or where they support. So be prepared to deal with a lot of mixed emotions. One of the biggest things that we had for feedback from managers is that we had all of these different problems with all of these different teams, different engineers that were holding us up, that were causing the project to be delayed. We had 30 days, let's deploy the agents. That turned into 90. Let's deploy it to the servers. We don't want to deploy it to the servers. Lots of back and forth, lots of battling. Managers wanted us to be up front. They wanted to know, what is the issue that's, causing the stopgap here? What do you need from us? And I think one of the challenges is that, as employees, we're kind of afraid to speak our minds, to kind of, tell a manager, your employee, your engineer team is basically, holding us up because of these issues. You kind of feel like you're throwing them under the bus, or you're not being a good peer or stuff like that. And for that, we just need to be prepared in the future to kind of be afraid, to not be afraid and to break that stereotype. Don't be afraid of the repercussions. Just speak appropriately. Have your information and everything set up so that when you're speaking with them, you have all of the facts. Of course, go through your own manager as well for support or pointers on how to address the problem. But our biggest feedback from the managers was, if you had just told us the truth, we could have helped you. Communication, this is a really tough one. So in higher education, different people have kind of opinions on who needs to be notified about something like this. So I guess I'm interested to see from the group, by a raise of hands, if you were to deploy this in higher ed, the SIEM solution, would you notify all of the students?
It depends on the institution, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm.
If you come to a school like this, or like an MIT, or some other school that's kind of more tech savvy, some people will be like, "Ooh, I don't want you installing malware or whatever stuff on my boxes." Now, if it's just like some random art school in like Iowa, no.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just that it doesn't seem practical.
Yeah. And so, as far as like our communication team went, this solution, installing the agent, all it's doing is it's pulling the logs from, the Windows security logs, for example. It's pulling those in, it's feeding them into the SIEM. There's lots of like confusion around, okay, well, if this is a computing device that is owned by RIT and we install this agent, why do we have to tell people if it's just providing security? So there's a lot of conversation that goes there. We had individuals who, were members of staff council and said, just for, the fact that the matter that they're on staff council, I want to bring this up to staff council. So we need to halt on deploying it until I get this out to them. We had individuals from academic senate that said, we need to bring this in front of academic senate. And so we had a lot of toss up there, a lot of arguing back and forth about how the communication is going to go. And I believe that we landed on faculty, staff, and students were notified. We didn't notify retirees or alumni. We did not present in front of staff council or academic senate. Provost, the president, and the board of directors were aware. And then the other challenge that we had is the library. Peer institutions that we reached out to about deploying a SIEM, none of them had any issues with notifying anybody, working with their engineers. Maybe they just had, just a lot of, great working relationships with each other and no issues. But here we had lots of different toss-ups. The library was very concerned about privacy of their patrons. So this kind of ties back into, do I deploy the agent to the workstations and not tell anybody? The library absolutely wanted everybody and anybody to know that a SIEM agent was going to be on a library system. They do have a New York State law that they're required to abide by for privacy. And there are two additional types of like library type frameworks that they abide by for privacy of the patrons. Essentially, anything that you do on a library computer should not be tracked. That includes, browsing the web, downloading anything for research. So that took a lot of collaboration with RIT Legal, the privacy department, the library staff to kind of, work through those issues. The main thing that we found out there was that a lot of their issues that they had with the SIEM were irrelevant because those privacy type deals only pertain to legal matters where we would have to do some sort of like a summons for like court. So communication is a very time-consuming piece. You've got to have lots of people working on the communications, lots of revisions, lots of meetings, and all that great stuff, which eventually will lead out to burnout. So it's just one of the things that you've got to look out for. To have a successful rollout, stick to a schedule. A good project manager will go a long way. We had a great project manager for this project, and had we kind of went back and implemented it the way that these slides are showing, we might have had it done a little bit quicker. But you want to have a tough, good project manager that can hold people accountable, stick to that schedule, knows how to communicate, can involve the managers if need be. And we had a suggestion. I'm not sure who suggested it, but they said, rather than doing this as a one-off type deployment, do this as part of a parallel rollout with another program. At the time, we didn't have anything else that we were rolling out. I don't know if deploying agents to 10,000 devices in conjunction with some other piece of software would have been a good idea or not, but that was the suggestion that we had. So in conclusion, what did I learn about this project? It pays to know a lot about your organization, your IT infrastructure, and all of the teams that manage it. Have all of your security metrics gathered. Basically, know everything about your current program. Have everything documented so when you need to present it, in the case of gathering funding or support from other IT departments or whatnot, you have all of that stuff. Make sure you build good relationships with others. Build a strong project team that has the right people that are knowledgeable, going to ask all those tough questions and are collaborative. Involve that vendor every step of the way until you close out. Don't be afraid to be honest with managers. Always do a proof of concept of everything that you're going to consider purchasing or implementing. Have all that documentation in order. Take care of yourself physically and mentally. In the end, it'll all be worth it. Does anybody have any questions?
What kind of car do you drive?
A 2022 Toyota Highlander.
How do you start that car?
Push a button.
Damn it. Okay, still, do you have a key fob for that car?
Yes.
Do you happen to have that key fob on you?
Yes.
Could you pull it out real
Maybe?
quick?
No, I don't have it. It's in my office.
Okay.
Come on, Kenny, you got this.
What?
Let me cook. Do you have any kind of office key on you right now?
No.
Dude, what in the world? Okay, so basically, we have a tradition here where the first presentation that you do, you get a nice lanyard to complement your keys. So if you had the keys, I would have been like, pull them out, and I would have been like, they look real lonely without the RIT-SEC lanyard. So everybody give Mike a round of applause.